Jake Murphy crouched behind a stack of rusted metal containers. His heart pounded in his chest. The air on planet Krath 7 smelled like chemicals and decay. Around him, the alien slave market buzzed with activity. Creatures from dozens of worlds were being bought and sold like cattle. He pressed his finger to his ear. "Team status report," he whispered into his comm device. "North side clear," came the voice of Pete Harris, his squad mate. "South side has 2 guards." "Nothing we can't handle," said Karen White, their weapons expert. Commander Lisa Grant's voice cut through the channel. "Remember, this is reconnaissance only. We observe and report. No engagement unless absolutely necessary." Jake acknowledged the order, but something felt wrong in his gut. They were here to gather intelligence on the Zarkonian Empire's slave operations. Earth needed to know how big this network was. But seeing living beings treated like objects made his blood boil. He moved quietly through the shadows. The Zarkonians were large creatures, nearly 7 feet tall with gray skin and sharp teeth. They carried energy weapons that could cut through steel. Jake had seen what those weapons did to people. It wasn't pretty. As he rounded a corner, he heard a sound that stopped him cold. It was crying, soft and broken, very human-like, even though he knew no humans were supposed to be out here. Against his better judgment, Jake followed the sound. He slipped past 2 guards who were busy arguing over a card game. The crying led him to a row of holding cells. The smell here was worse. Waste and fear. Then he saw her. In the last cell sat a young woman. At least she looked like a woman. Her skin had a faint blue tint under the harsh lights. Her hair was long and silver. But her eyes, those eyes were the saddest thing Jake had ever seen. They were large and amber-colored, filled with pain and resignation. She was chained to the wall. Heavy metal chains bound her wrists and ankles. Her clothes were torn. Bruises covered her arms. She looked up at Jake, and their eyes met. For a moment, neither moved. "Please," she whispered in a language he didn't know, but he understood the meaning. Everyone understands please. Jake's training told him to walk away. Complete the mission. Don't compromise the operation. But his humanity told him something different. He moved to her cell. The lock was electronic. Jake pulled out his portable hacking device. His hands worked quickly while he kept one eye on the corridor. "What are you doing?" Karen's voice crackled in his ear. "Jake, your biosigns just spiked." "What's happening?" "I found someone," Jake said quietly. "I'm getting her out." "Negative." Commander Grant's voice was sharp. "Jake, do not compromise this mission." "That's an order." "Then court-martial me later," Jake replied and muted his comm. The lock clicked open. Jake pushed the cell door and stepped inside. The woman watched him with wide eyes. She said something in her language. It sounded like a question. "I'm here to help," Jake said slowly. He pointed to her chains and then to himself. "I'll free you," she seemed to understand. She held out her wrists. Jake used a small plasma cutter to break through the chains. The metal fell away. Her wrists were raw underneath. She winced but didn't cry out. As he worked on her ankle chains, alarms began to blare. "Great," Jake muttered. Someone had noticed the security breach. Heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. The woman's eyes widened in fear. She grabbed Jake's arm and pointed to a side passage. She was trying to help him escape. Jake finished cutting the last chain. "Can you run?" he asked. She nodded. They ran together through the maze of corridors. Behind them, angry shouts filled the air. Energy blasts lit up the walls. Jake pulled his weapon and fired back without looking. He just needed to slow them down. They burst out into an open courtyard. Jake's squad mates were waiting at the extraction point. The ship hovered above them. "Jake, what did you do?" Pete shouted. "No time." "Get to the ship!" More Zarkonians poured into the courtyard. There were too many. Jake pushed the woman toward the ship. "Go, climb up." She hesitated. Her eyes locked on his face. She said something urgent in her language. An energy blast struck the ground near Jake's feet. He returned fire, dropping 2 Zarkonians. But more kept coming. Karen provided covering fire from the ship's doorway. "Move, Jake." Jake started to run. Then pain exploded in his shoulder. He'd been hit. The world spun. He stumbled. Suddenly the woman was there. She caught him before he fell. For someone who looked so delicate, she was surprisingly strong. She half carried, half dragged him toward the ship. "Leave me," Jake groaned. "You'll make it if you go now." She said something fierce in her language. Whatever it meant, it clearly wasn't agreement. They reached the ship together. Pete and Karen pulled them both inside. The ship lifted off immediately. Energy blasts peppered the hull. Jake lay on the floor, clutching his shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers. The woman knelt beside him. She was saying something over and over. Her hands touched his face gently. "Get her away from me," Jake said to Karen. "I need medical attention." But when Karen tried to pull the woman away, she refused. She held onto Jake's hand and wouldn't let go. "Stubborn, isn't she?" Pete commented. The ship shook as they cleared the planet's atmosphere. Commander Grant appeared from the cockpit. Her face was not happy. "Murphy, you just started an intergalactic incident," she said coldly. "Yes, ma'am," Jake said through gritted teeth. The pain in his shoulder was getting worse. "You disobeyed a direct order." "Yes, ma'am. You compromised our mission." "Yes, ma'am." Commander Grant looked at the woman who still held Jake's hand. The woman stared back at her, chin raised despite her condition. "And you brought home a souvenir," Grant finished. She sighed. "Dr. Cole to the cargo bay. We have wounded." As the medical officer arrived, the woman refused to move from Jake's side. She watched every movement Dr. Cole made. When he tried to inject painkillers, she grabbed his wrist. She looked at Jake questioningly. "It's okay," Jake said softly. "He's helping, friend." She seemed to understand the tone, if not the words. She released the doctor's wrist but continued to watch carefully. As the medicine began to work, Jake's eyes grew heavy. The last thing he saw before unconsciousness took him was the woman's face. She was still holding his hand. Tears ran down her blue-tinted cheeks, but she was smiling. Back in his military career, Jake had made many decisions. Some good, some bad. As the darkness took him, he wondered which category this one would fall into. He had no idea that this single choice would change not just his life, but the fate of entire civilizations. The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying them all away from Krath 7. Behind them, the Zarkonians scrambled to report what had happened. The slave they called the Royal had escaped, and she had found a champion in the most unexpected place, a human soldier who couldn't ignore suffering, even when ordered to. Jake woke to the steady hum of the ship's engines. His shoulder throbbed with a dull ache. He tried to sit up, but a gentle hand pushed him back down. "Easy there, soldier," Dr. Nathan Cole said. "You took a nasty hit. The blast burned through muscle tissue. You're lucky it missed the bone." Jake blinked his eyes into focus. He was in the medical bay. White walls, bright lights, the smell of antiseptic, and sitting in a chair right next to his bed was the woman he had rescued. She looked better now. Someone had given her clean clothes. Her silver hair was washed and braided. The bruises on her arms were covered in healing gel. But her eyes never left Jake's face. "How long was I out?" Jake asked. 12 hours, Dr. Cole replied. "And your friend here hasn't moved the entire time. We tried to get her to eat in the mess hall. She refused. We tried to give her quarters to rest. She refused. She just sits there and watches you." Jake looked at the woman. "You should rest. You've been through a lot." She tilted her head. She said something in her language. It sounded musical and soft. "We've been trying to communicate with her," Dr. Cole continued. "Lieutenant Amy Ross has been running her language through the translation database. So far, no matches." As if summoned by her name, Lieutenant Ross entered the medical bay. She carried a data pad and looked excited. "I think I figured it out," Amy said. She approached the woman slowly and spoke in a strange, flowing language. The woman's eyes went wide. She stood up quickly and responded in rapid speech. Her hands moved as she talked. She pointed at Jake several times. "What's she saying?" Jake asked. Amy's expression grew serious. "She's speaking an ancient dialect of Valian. It's a language from a star system about 200 light-years from here. The Valian Empire is known for being peaceful and advanced. They rarely interact with other species." "What's she saying about me?" Jake pressed. "She says her name is Liara. She's asking if you're well. She seems very worried about you." "Tell her I'm fine," Jake said. Amy spoke to Liara. The woman relaxed slightly but still didn't sit down. "There's more," Amy said carefully. "She says she owes you a life debt. In Valian culture, when someone saves a royal family member from certain death, a sacred bond is formed. The saved person must stay by their savior's side until the debt is repaid. Wait, royal family? Dr. Cole interrupted. She's a princess? Amy asked Liara another question. Liara responded with a nod. Not just a princess, Amy translated. She's the daughter of King Veyron, ruler of the Valian star system. She was betrayed by someone in her father's court and sold to the Zarkonians. Jake felt like he'd been hit again. So I didn't just rescue a prisoner. I rescued an alien princess. Looks that way, Amy said with a slight smile. Commander Lisa Grant entered the medical bay. She did not look amused. Murphy, when you wake up, you sure know how to create problems. Jake tried to sit up again. This time Liara helped support his back. Her touch was surprisingly gentle. Ma'am, I can explain, Jake started. Save it, Grant cut him off. What's done is done. Now we need to figure out what to do with our guest. We're 6 hours from New Hope Station. Command is going to want answers. Liara spoke again. Amy translated. She says she will not leave Jake's side. She says the life debt is sacred. Breaking it would dishonor her family and her people. Tell her she doesn't owe me anything, Jake said firmly. I was just doing what any decent person would do, Amy translated. Liara's response was passionate. Her amber eyes blazed with intensity. She says that's exactly why the debt exists, Amy translated. She says in her world people act for politics and power. You acted for nothing but kindness. That makes the debt even more sacred. Jake ran his good hand through his hair. This is crazy. Agreed, Commander Grant said. But we need to deal with reality. Murphy, you're stuck with an alien princess who won't leave your side. Dr. Cole, is he fit for duty? Light duty only, Dr. Cole replied. No combat situations for at least a week. Fine. Murphy, consider yourself her escort until we reach the station. Maybe by then she'll change her mind. Over the next few hours, Jake tried to convince Liara that she was free to go anywhere on the ship. Each time she simply shook her head and stayed close. When he went to the mess hall for food, she followed. When he returned to his quarters to change his shirt, she waited outside his door. The crew found it amusing at first. Pete teased Jake mercilessly. Got yourself a royal shadow, Murphy. How does it feel to be a princess's bodyguard? But Liara proved to be more than just a rescued victim. When Jake went to the observation deck, she stood beside him and looked out at the stars. She pointed at different star clusters and spoke in her language. Amy, who had joined them to help translate, explained that Liara was identifying different systems and explaining their histories. She's highly educated, Amy said with admiration. She knows stellar navigation, political structures, and even combat tactics. The Valian royal family trains their children in many disciplines. Jake watched Liara as she traced constellation patterns on the window. She's smart, he agreed. Liara turned and met his eyes. She said something softly. She says you have kind eyes, Amy translated. She says she saw many faces in the slave market. Cruel faces, empty faces. But your eyes showed you still had your soul. Jake felt his chest tighten. He didn't know what to say to that. The quiet moment was shattered by alarm klaxons. All hands. To battle stations. Commander Grant's voice boomed through the ship. Zarkonian scout ship approaching fast. Jake's instincts kicked in. He ran toward the bridge with Liara right behind him. Amy followed close. The bridge was chaos. Pete manned the weapons console. Karen was at navigation. Commander Grant stood at the command station. They must have tracked us, Grant said. Small scout ship, 3 crew members. They're demanding we return their property. We're not property, Jake growled. Liara stepped forward. She looked at the view screen showing the Zarkonian ship. Then she turned to Amy and spoke rapidly. She says she knows Zarkonian attack patterns, Amy translated quickly. She studied military tactics from many species. She says they'll try to disable our engines first, then board us. How would she know that? Karen asked skeptically. Liara spoke again, more urgently. She says she spent weeks in their prison, Amy translated. She listened, she learned. She says if you shift power to rear shields and rotate 30 degrees, their first shot will miss the engines. Commander Grant looked at Liara for a long moment. Then she nodded. Do it. Karen made the adjustments. The Zarkonian ship fired. The blast struck their shields but missed the engines completely. She was right, Pete said with surprise. Return fire, Grant ordered. Target their weapons array. The battle was brief. With Liara's help predicting the enemy's movements, they disabled the Zarkonian scout ship quickly. Grant ordered a warning shot near their hull before the human ship jumped away at faster-than-light speed. When the danger passed, the crew looked at Liara with new respect. She wasn't just a rescued princess. She was an asset. That night, Jake sat in his quarters. His shoulder still hurt, but he was thinking about what had happened. Liara sat across from him. Amy had taught her a few words of English during the day. Thank you, Liara said carefully in English. The words were accented but clear. You helped us today, Jake replied. I should thank you. She shook her head. You gave freedom. I give help, not same. Jake smiled. You're learning fast. Liara pointed at him and then at her chest. You see me, not property, not tool. Me. Jake understood. In the slave market, she had been a thing. He had seen her as a person. That simple act meant everything to her. You are a person, Jake said slowly so she could understand. You deserve freedom. Liara touched her hand to her heart and then extended it toward Jake. It seemed like a salute or blessing. Life debt, she said in English. Sacred, I stay. Jake realized she wasn't going to change her mind. And maybe, he thought, that wasn't such a bad thing. She was brave, intelligent, and had already saved the ship once. Plus, there was something about her presence that felt right. Okay, Jake said finally. You can stay. Liara smiled. It was the first real smile he'd seen from her. It transformed, her face from sad and haunted to something beautiful and full of life. As the ship carried them toward New Hope Station, neither Jake nor Liara knew the complications waiting ahead. They didn't know about the diplomatic crisis their meeting would create. They didn't know about the threats that would come. All they knew was that somehow in the darkness of a slave market, two souls had found each other, and that bond would prove stronger than either of them imagined. New Hope Station appeared on the view screen like a massive spinning wheel in space. Thousands of lights dotted its surface. Ships of various sizes docked at its many ports. It was one of humanity's largest colonies, home to over 50,000 people. Jake stood on the bridge with Liara beside him. She stared at the station with wide eyes. She spoke in Valian and Amy quickly translated. She says it's beautiful. She didn't know humans built such impressive structures. We're full of surprises, Jake said with a slight smile. Commander Grant received clearance to dock. As the ship maneuvered into position, she turned to Jake. Murphy, when we land, Admiral Frank Hayes wants to see you immediately. Bring the princess. Jake's stomach tightened. Admiral Hayes was the station commander. He was known for being strict but fair. This meeting would not be pleasant. The docking procedure went smoothly. As soon as the ship settled, a group of security personnel boarded. They were polite but firm. Jake and Liara were escorted through the station's corridors while curious onlookers stared. Liara stayed close to Jake. She watched everything with alert eyes. Her hand rested near a blade that Amy had given her for self-defense. She looked ready to fight if anyone tried to separate her from Jake. They arrived at Admiral Hayes' office. It was a large room with windows overlooking the station's interior. The Admiral sat behind a desk covered in data pads. He was older, maybe 60, with gray hair and sharp eyes. Standing beside him was a man in diplomatic robes. His name was Counselor Derek Stone, Earth's representative for alien relations. Sergeant Murphy, Admiral Hayes said. His voice was calm but held authority. Do you understand the situation you've created? Yes, sir, Jake replied. I rescued a prisoner from illegal slavery. I'd do it again. That prisoner is Princess Liara of the Valian Empire, Counselor Stone said. He stepped forward. Her father, King Veyron, has been searching for her for months. The Valians have been in mourning. They believed she was dead. Liara spoke in Valian. Amy, who had been allowed to join them, translated. She says her father must be told she's alive. We've already sent a message, the counselor said. A Valian diplomatic ship is on its way. They should arrive in 3 days. Good, Jake said. Then she can go home safely. There's a problem, Admiral Hayes said. The princess refuses to leave your side. We've explained that you're a soldier with duties. We've offered her comfortable quarters. She refuses everything unless you're with her. Jake looked at Liara. She met his gaze and spoke firmly. She says the life debt must be honored, Amy translated. She says she will not leave Jake until the debt is repaid. To do so would bring dishonor to her family name. Counselor Stone sighed. This creates a diplomatic complication. We need to return the princess to strengthen relations with the Valian Empire. They have technology we desperately need, but we can't force her to go. That would violate everything we claim to stand for. What kind of technology? Jake asked. A new voice entered the conversation. Shield technology that could save millions of lives. Everyone turned. A woman in military intelligence uniform entered the room. She had short black hair and carried herself with confidence. Captain Helen Martinez, she introduced herself. I'm with Earth Intelligence. I've been monitoring Zarkonian movements. She activated a holographic display. It showed a star map with red zones spreading like a disease. The Zarkonians are planning a major offensive, Captain Martinez explained. They're targeting human colonies along the outer rim. We estimate they'll attack within 6 months. Our current shields can't withstand their weapons. We'll lose colonies. Millions will die or be enslaved. She changed the display to show a different technology. The Valians have adaptive shield technology. It learns from attacks and adjusts in real time. With their shields, our colonies could survive. And they'll share this technology? Jake asked. If we return their princess and establish good relations, yes, Counselor Stone said. King Veyron has expressed interest in an alliance. But everything depends on his daughter returning home safely and willingly. Jake felt the weight of the situation settle on his shoulders. Millions of lives against one person's choice. But he had seen too many times what happened when people were forced to do things against their will. We can't force her, Jake said quietly. We have to convince her. Admiral Hayes nodded. I was hoping you'd say that. You have 3 days, Murphy. Make her understand what's at stake. The meeting ended. Jake and Liara were given quarters in the station's residential section. They were nice rooms with a view of space, but Liara barely noticed. She sat on the couch and looked at Jake with worried eyes. You are troubled, she said in her improving English. Amy had been teaching her constantly. Jake sat down heavily. Liara, I need to explain something to you. It's important. Over the next hour, with Amy's help, Jake explained the situation. He told her about the Zarkonian threat, about the human colonies that would be attacked, about the children and families who would suffer, about the technology her people had that could save lives. Liara listened carefully. Her face showed her intelligence. She understood the problem clearly. You want me to go home, she said finally. I want you to save lives, Jake corrected. Your people have the power to help, but they'll only do it if you return and ask them to. And you? Liara asked. What do you want? Jake met her eyes. I want you to be free to choose. That's why I freed you from those chains. Not so you could be trapped by different chains. Liara stood and walked to the window. She looked out at the stars. Jake watched her and felt something in his chest tighten. Over the past few days, he had grown to respect her. She was brave, smart, and kind. The thought of her leaving bothered him more than he wanted to admit. In my world, Liara said slowly, royalty does not choose. We do what is needed. We marry who we are told. We sign treaties. We smile for politics. She turned to face Jake. But you showed me different. You chose to help me when it was not smart, not safe. You chose with your heart. Sometimes that's the only way to live, Jake said. Liara smiled sadly. Then I choose with my heart too. I will return to my people. I will ask my father to help your colonies. But, she paused, the life debt remains. It is not complete. Liara, you don't owe me anything, Jake insisted. It is not about owing, she replied. It is about honor, about connection. She struggled for the English words. You see my soul, I see yours. This is rare. This is precious. Before Jake could respond, alarm klaxons blared through the station. Jake's comm device activated. Commander Grant's voice came through. Murphy, we have a situation. A Zarkonian attack force just appeared at the station's edge. They're demanding we turn over the princess. Jake and Liara ran to the command center. The large room was filled with military personnel working frantically. Admiral Hayes stood at the central console. How many ships? Hayes demanded. 3 warships, an officer reported. They're holding position just outside weapon range. They can't attack a diplomatic station, Counselor Stone said. That would be an act of war. They don't care, Captain Martinez said grimly. They want the princess. She's worth more to them than peace. Liara stepped forward. She spoke to Amy. She says she'll go with them, Amy translated. She says she won't let innocent people die because of her. No, Jake said firmly. He grabbed Liara's arm gently. That's not happening. Then what do we do? Admiral Hayes asked. Jake's mind raced. He thought about the past few days, about Liara's intelligence, her courage, her understanding of different cultures. We stall, Jake said. We tell them we're negotiating. Meanwhile, we get a message to the Valian ship. Tell them to hurry. They're still 2 days away, an officer said. Then we hold for 2 days, Jake replied. Admiral Hayes considered this. It's risky. The Zarkonians might attack anyway. They won't, Liara said in English. Everyone turned to look at her. They want me alive. I am worth much money. Dead princess is worth nothing. They will wait. They will threaten, but they will wait. Captain Martinez smiled. She's right. The princess is a valuable commodity to them. They won't destroy her. All right, Hayes decided. We stall. But if they attack, we defend the station with everything we have. Over the next 2 days, the tension was unbearable. The Zarkonian ship stayed at the edge of the station's defense zone. They sent threatening messages every few hours. They demanded the princess. They promised violence if she wasn't handed over. Jake stayed with Liara constantly. They talked about many things. She taught him about Valian culture, their art, their music, their philosophy. Jake taught her about Earth, about humanity's history, about why they fought for freedom. Your people are warriors, Liara observed one evening. But not cruel warriors. You fight for others, not for conquest. We fight because someone has to, Jake replied. We've seen what happens when good people do nothing. We won't let it happen again. Liara touched his face gently. It was a Valian gesture of deep respect. This is why the life debt is sacred. You are worth knowing. On the 3rd day, alarms sounded again, but this time it was different. Valian diplomatic ship entering the system, an officer announced. Correction, make that a Valian battle fleet. Jake and Liara rushed to the observation deck. Through the windows, they could see ships appearing from faster-than-light travel. They were elegant vessels with smooth curves and glowing blue lights. There were dozens of them. The Zarkonian ships immediately retreated. They jumped to faster-than-light speed and disappeared. They're not stupid enough to fight the Valian military, Captain Martinez said with satisfaction. A communication came through. The face that appeared on the screen was male and shared Liara's features. He had the same amber eyes and silver hair. This is Prince Torin of the Valian Empire, the man said. We are searching for Princess Liara. We received word she may be at this station. Liara stepped forward. Brother, she said in Valian. The prince's face transformed. Joy, relief, love, all of it showed clearly. Liara, you're alive. Arrangements were made for the prince to come aboard. As they waited, Liara turned to Jake. My brother comes, she said. Soon I must face my choice, go home. Save lives, but... She looked at him with those amber eyes. I do not want to leave you. Jake felt the same way, but he knew what had to happen. Sometimes doing the right thing means making hard choices. Yes, Liara agreed softly. Sometimes it does. Prince Torren's shuttle arrived, and with it the future neither Jake nor Liara expected. The reunion between Liara and her brother was emotional. Prince Torren embraced his sister tightly. He spoke rapidly in Valian, his voice breaking with relief. Liara held on to him and tears ran down her face. Jake watched from a respectful distance. Amy stood beside him, translating quietly. He's telling her that their father never stopped searching, that the entire empire mourned, that he blamed himself for not protecting her. After several minutes, Liara pulled back. She spoke to her brother and gestured toward Jake. Torren's expression became serious. He approached Jake and bowed deeply. "You saved my sister's life," Torren said in perfect English. "The Valian Empire owes you a debt that can never be repaid." "I just did what anyone should do," Jake replied, feeling uncomfortable with such formal gratitude. "But most would not," Torren said. He studied Jake carefully. "My sister has told me of the life debt. I understand she has refused to leave your side." "She's free to go whenever she wants," Jake said quickly. "I've never tried to hold her here." "I know," Torren replied. "That is precisely why she stays." He paused. "But I must speak with her about our situation at home." "May we have privacy?" Jake nodded. He left the room with Amy. As the door closed, he felt a strange emptiness. For days, Liara had been constantly nearby. Now the silence felt wrong. "You care about her," Amy observed. "She's been through hell," Jake said. "I want her to be safe. That's all." Amy smiled knowingly but said nothing. An hour later, Torren emerged alone. His face was troubled. "Sergeant Murphy, we need to talk." "You and your commanding officers." They gathered in Admiral Hayes's conference room. Commander Grant, Captain Martinez, Counselor Stone, and several other officers attended. Torren stood at the head of the table with holographic displays floating beside him. "My sister was not captured randomly," Torren began. "She was betrayed." He activated a display showing a Valian man with cold eyes. "This is Advisor Ralthan. He serves in our father's court. We trusted him completely. What did he do?" Admiral Hayes asked. "He has been secretly negotiating with the Zarkonian Empire," Torren explained. "He wants to form an alliance, to combine Valian technology with Zarkonian military force. Together they would dominate this region of space." Captain Martinez leaned forward. "And your sister opposed this?" "Liara is brilliant and sees clearly," Torren said with obvious pride. "She recognized the danger. She spoke against the alliance in court. She convinced many nobles to side with her." He paused, so Ralthan had her removed. He arranged for her to be kidnapped and sold to slavers. Without her, the opposition crumbled. My father, lost in grief, stopped paying attention to politics. Ralthan gained more power. How much power? Counselor Stone asked carefully. Torren's expression darkened. Enough to be dangerous. When Liara returns, Ralthan will see her as a threat. He may try to eliminate her again. Then she shouldn't go back, Jake said immediately. She can stay here where she's safe. And let billions suffer under Zarkonian rule? Torren countered. The alliance Ralthan wants would be devastating. The Valian people are peaceful. They don't understand war. Ralthan would use our technology to help the Zarkonians conquer innocent worlds. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. There's more, Torren continued reluctantly. Ralthan has proposed a marriage between Liara and a Zarkonian warlord named Krax. It would seal the alliance. If Liara returns, she may be forced into this marriage. Jake stood up abruptly. No, absolutely not. It is our way, Torren said sadly. Royal marriages are political tools. Liara understands this. She was raised for duty. She was also raised in chains, Jake said angrily. I didn't free her from one prison so she could be locked in another. Admiral Hayes held up a hand. Everyone calm down. Prince Torren, what does your sister say about this? She says she will return home, Torren replied. She says her people need her. She will fight Ralthan's influence and stop the alliance, whatever the cost. Even if it means marrying a Zarkonian warlord? Commander Grant asked. Torren's silence was answer enough. Jake left the conference room. He found Liara in the observation deck, staring out at the Valian fleet. She turned when he entered. You know, she said quietly. I know, Jake confirmed. And I don't like it. Liara smiled sadly. You told me I'm free to choose. Now I choose. I choose my people over myself. What about choosing to live? Jake argued. What about choosing happiness? I am royal, Liara said. Happiness is not guaranteed. Duty is certain. That's not fair, Jake said. Fair? Liara laughed without humor. Life is not fair. You know this. You are soldier. You sacrifice for others. This is same. Jake wanted to argue more, but he knew she was right. He had chosen a soldier's life knowing he might die for others. How could he tell her not to make the same choice? I'm sorry, he said finally. I just wish there was another way. Liara moved closer. She took his hand in hers. You gave me gift. You showed me kindness exists, that someone can care without wanting power. I will remember always. Before Jake could respond, urgent alarms sounded. All personnel to stations. Admiral Hayes' voice commanded. We have an emergency situation. Jake and Liara ran to the command center. Chaos filled the room. Officers shouted reports. What's happening? Commander Grant demanded. We've received a communication from Unity Point, an officer reported. Unity Point was a neutral space station where diplomatic meetings were held. The Zarkonians have agreed to peace talks with Earth. They're requesting our delegation arrive immediately. It's a trap, Captain Martinez said instantly. Maybe, Admiral Hayes said. But we can't ignore a chance for peace. Our colonies are still vulnerable. I will go, Liara said. Everyone turned to look at her. The Zarkonians know me. If I am there, they will negotiate honestly. They want me. They will talk to get me. Absolutely not, Jake said. You're not bait. I am Princess, Liara replied calmly. I am trained for diplomacy. Let me help your people, please. Admiral Hayes considered carefully. If we bring Princess Liara, it might work. The Zarkonians might actually negotiate, but it's incredibly dangerous. I'll go with her, Jake volunteered immediately. If she's going into danger, I'm going too. Torrin stepped forward. As will I and a contingent of Valian guards. My sister will be protected. After much debate, the plan was approved. A diplomatic ship would travel to Unity Point with both human and Valian delegations. Liara would attend as a symbol of cooperation between their peoples. The journey to Unity Point took 2 days. The station was massive, larger than New Hope. It was run by the Keldan Confederacy, a peaceful species known for their neutrality. The station's interior was beautiful with gardens and flowing water features. The human delegation was led by Ambassador Claire Johnson, a skilled diplomat. The Valian guards were elite soldiers in elegant armor. And Jake stayed close to Liara at all times. The peace talks began in a large conference room. The Zarkonians arrived with their own delegation. Leading them was Vornak, the same slave trader who had imprisoned Liara. When Vornak saw Liara, his eyes widened with shock and rage. He pointed at her and spoke in harsh tones. He's accusing humans of theft, the Keldan translator said. He says the princess is Zarkonian property. Ambassador Johnson stood calmly. Princess Liara is a free citizen of the Valian Empire. She was illegally kidnapped and enslaved. We simply returned her to freedom. The argument continued for hours. No progress was made. Vornak kept demanding Liara be returned to Zarkonian custody. The humans and Valians refused. That evening there was a formal dinner for all delegations. Liara wore a beautiful Valian dress that shimmered like starlight. Jake wore his military dress uniform. They sat together at the large table. This is not going well, Liara whispered to him. No, Jake agreed. Vornak wants you back too badly. He's not interested in real peace. Suddenly Torrin appeared at their side. His face was urgent. Sister, we need to talk now. They moved to a private corner. Torrin spoke rapidly in Valian. Liara's face went pale. She gripped Jake's arm. What's wrong? Jake demanded. Ralthan has moved faster than we thought, Torrin explained. He's convinced our father that Liara's return should be celebrated with her marriage to Warlord Krax. The ceremony is being planned. If Liara returns home, she'll be forced to marry within days. Liara spoke in Valian. Her voice shook with anger. She says she won't do it, Amy translated. She had joined them. She says she'll fight. If you fight, Ralthan will claim you're unfit to rule, Torrin said sadly. He'll use it to strengthen his position. The alliance with the Zarkonians will proceed. Everything will be lost. Jake looked at Liara's face. He saw her struggling. Duty pulling one way, freedom pulling another. There has to be another option, Jake said desperately. Before anyone could respond, the lights went out. Screams erupted in the darkness. Energy weapons fired. Blue blasts lit up the room like lightning. It's an attack! someone shouted. Jake pulled Liara down behind a table.
Stay low,
He commanded. Torin and the Valian guards formed a protective circle, but the attackers were everywhere. They wore black armor and moved with military precision. They're after the princess. Commander Grant's voice came through the chaos.
protect the VIP.
Jake saw figures moving toward their position. He returned fire with his sidearm. One attacker fell, but more kept coming. Hands grabbed at Liara. She fought back fiercely, but there were too many. Jake lunged forward, trying to reach her. Pain exploded across his head. Stars filled his vision. He felt himself falling. The last thing he saw was Liara being dragged away, screaming his name. Then darkness took him. Jake woke to pain and cold. His head throbbed where he'd been hit. His wrists were locked in metal restraints above his head. The room was dark except for a single light that hurt his eyes. He was in a Zarkonian prison cell. The walls were bare metal. The air smelled like chemicals and fear. Awake finally, a voice said. Vornak stepped into the light. His gray skin looked darker in the shadows. His teeth showed in something that might have been a smile. The human who stole my most valuable prize. Where is Liara? Jake demanded. His voice was rough. Safe, Vornak replied. For now. She's worth too much to damage. Unlike you. He moved closer. You cost me a fortune when you freed her. You humiliated me in front of my people. Now you'll pay for that. The others will come for us, Jake said. Will they? Vornak laughed. By the time they organize a rescue, you'll have told me everything about human military defenses. And the princess will be on her way to her new husband, Warlord Krax. He activated a device that sent electricity through Jake's restraints. Pain shot through his body. Jake gritted his teeth to keep from crying out. This is just the beginning, Vornak said. You'll tell me everything. They all do eventually. The torture continued for hours, or maybe days. Jake lost track of time. Vornak wanted information about Earth's colonies, their defenses, their military capabilities. Jake gave him nothing useful. Old information, false locations, anything to waste time. Between sessions, Jake thought about Liara. He hoped she was safe. He hoped Torin had found her. But most of all, he hoped she would escape and live free. Even if he didn't survive this, he must have passed out because when he woke again, everything had changed. The sound of weapons fire echoed through the ship. Alarms blared. Vornak ran past Jake's cell, shouting orders in his language. Then the cell door exploded inward. Liara stood in the doorway. She wore Valian battle armor and carried an energy rifle. Her amber eyes blazed with determination and rage. Liara, Jake croaked. She rushed to him. Her hands worked quickly to release his restraints. Can you walk? I can fight, Jake replied, though his legs nearly gave out when she freed him. Liara supported his weight. My brother and your soldiers are here. We came for you. You should have left, Jake said. Saved yourself. The life debt, Liara reminded him with a small smile. It is sacred. I do not abandon those I am bonded to. They moved through the corridors of the Zarkonian warship. Bodies of Zarkonian soldiers lay everywhere. Valian guards and human special forces fought side by side. Commander Grant coordinated the attack through comm channels. Pete appeared around a corner. Jake, you look terrible. Feel worse, Jake replied. Status. We're securing the ship, Pete reported. The Zarkonians are retreating to escape pods, cowards. Where's Vornak? Liara asked with cold determination. Last seen heading to the bridge, Pete replied. Liara's expression hardened. He is mine. They fought their way to the bridge. Vornak waited there with a handful of his elite guards. When he saw Liara, his face twisted with fury. You dare attack my ship, he roared. You tortured someone under my protection, Liara replied in perfect Zarkonian. Jake hadn't known she spoke the language. In my culture, that demands justice. Your culture? Vornak laughed. You are property. Escaped property? When Warlord Krax hears of this, your entire system will burn. Then let him try, Liara said calmly. She set down her rifle and drew a blade from her armor. I challenge you under the ancient laws. Single combat. Winner claims justice. Vornak's guards looked at each other uncertainly. The challenge was part of old Zarkonian tradition. It was rarely used but still recognized. You? Vornak said mockingly. You're half my size. Then it should be easy, Liara replied. Jake tried to step forward. Liara, you don't have to do this. She looked at him with those amber eyes. Yes, I do, for you. For my people. For everyone he has hurt. She turned back to Vornak. Do you accept? Vornak's pride wouldn't let him refuse. I accept. And when I win, I keep both of you. The fight began. Vornak was larger and stronger, but Liara was faster and smarter. She moved like water, flowing around his attacks. Her blade found gaps in his armor. Small cuts that bled but didn't stop him. Jake wanted to help, but Commander Grant held him back. This is her fight. Honor demands we let her finish it. Vornak grew frustrated. He made mistakes. Liara exploited each one. Finally, she ducked under his swing and drove her blade into his knee. He fell with a howl of pain. Liara stood over him, blade at his throat. Yield! Never! Vornak spat. Then die with your pride, Liara said coldly. But she didn't kill him. Instead, she turned to Commander Grant. He is yours. Take him for trial. Let your laws decide his fate, Grant nodded approvingly. Good choice, Princess. With Vornak captured, the Zarkonian crew surrendered. The ship was secured. Medical teams arrived to treat the wounded. Dr. Nathan Cole fussed over Jake's injuries while Liara refused to leave his side. You came for me, Jake said as the doctor worked. Of course, Liara replied. The life debt and, she hesitated. More than debt. You are friend. You are important. Before Jake could respond, Torin entered the medical bay. Behind him came a group of Valian officials in formal robes. Liara, Torin said seriously. Father's advisors are here. They have demands. One of the officials stepped forward. He was old with silver hair and cold eyes. Princess Liara, your presence is required at home. The marriage to Warlord Krax has been arranged. You will return immediately. No, Liara said simply. The official's face hardened. You have no choice. It is for the good of the Empire. Whose good? Liara challenged. Ralthan's? He sold me to slavers. He wants to ally with the Zarkonians. He wants power, not peace. You have no proof, the official said. Yes, I do. Torin stepped forward. He activated a holographic recording. It showed Ralthan meeting with Zarkonian officials. It showed him arranging Liara's kidnapping. It showed everything. Where did you get this? The official gasped. Captain Martinez of Earth Intelligence, Torin said. While you were busy planning a wedding, the humans were gathering evidence. They helped me find the truth. The official looked shaken. The other Valian advisors whispered among themselves. If this is true, one said, then Advisor Ralthan must face justice. It is true, Liara said firmly, and I will return home to see it done. But I will not marry Krax. I will not allow my empire to ally with slavers and conquerors. But we need protection, another advisor argued. Our people are peaceful. We have no military strength. Then ally with Earth, Liara said. She looked at Jake. These humans fight for freedom. They risk their lives for strangers. They are worthy allies. Admiral Hayes, who had joined them, spoke up. The Valian Empire would be welcome as our ally. We could offer protection in exchange for your shield technology, a fair trade between equals. The Valian advisors considered this. Finally, the lead advisor nodded. We will present this to King Veyron. But Princess, you must return to make the formal proposal. I will return, Liara agreed, but not alone. She turned to Jake. I have a proposal. Jake waited. The life debt is not complete, Liara said. By Valian law, I must remain with you until it is satisfied. But I am also princess. I have duties to my people. She paused. So I ask, will you come with me? Will you serve as Earth's official representative to my father's court? Jake stared at her. You want me to be a diplomat? I want you to be you, Liara said softly. Brave, honest, kind, someone who reminds us all what matters. She smiled. Also, the life debt requires it. Commander Grant stepped forward. Murphy, the choice is yours. But I think this might be the most important mission you'll ever serve. Jake looked around the room, at his friends and fellow soldiers, at the Valian advisors watching carefully, at Torin, who nodded encouragingly, and finally at Liara, who waited for his answer with hope in her amber eyes. I'm a soldier, Jake said slowly. I follow orders. I shoot things. I'm not trained for politics. You're trained for what matters, Liara replied. You know right from wrong. You act when others hesitate. That is more valuable than any training. Jake thought about his life, the missions, the battles, the endless cycle of violence. Maybe it was time for something different. Maybe he could do more good with words than with weapons. All right, he said finally. I'll go with you. Liara's face lit up with joy. Torin clapped him on the shoulder. The Valiant advisors looked relieved. 3 weeks later, Jake stood in a massive throne room on the Valiant homeworld. The planet was beautiful, with purple oceans and silver cities that seemed to grow naturally from the landscape. King Veyron sat on a throne made of crystal. He was an imposing figure with kind eyes. He looked at Jake for a long moment. You saved my daughter's life, the king said. You freed her from chains. You protected her when you had no obligation. Why? Jake thought about his answer carefully. Because it was right, Your Majesty. She needed help. I could provide it. That's enough reason. King Veyron smiled. That is the best answer you could have given. He stood and walked down from his throne. Many beings in this galaxy act from greed or fear or ambition. You acted from compassion. That is rare. That is precious. He placed his hand on Jake's shoulder. You are welcome in my court, Jake Murphy of Earth. You will serve as liaison between our peoples. More than that, you will be family. For anyone who shows such care for my daughter deserves to be called brother. Jake bowed, deeply moved. The alliance between Earth and the Valiant Empire was formalized that day. Shield technology was shared. Trade routes were established. Military cooperation was agreed upon. The Zarkonian offensive, when it came, was met with combined human and Valiant forces. The slavers were driven back. Advisor Ralthan was arrested and tried for treason. Vornak faced justice for his crimes. The illegal slave markets were shut down. Thousands of prisoners were freed. But the most important change was personal. Jake and Liara worked together in the Valiant court. She taught him about galactic politics. He taught her about human courage and determination. They became a team, respected by both their peoples. The life debt was eventually declared satisfied by Valiant tradition. But by then it didn't matter. They had formed something deeper than debt, a friendship built on mutual respect and shared values. Years later, Jake stood on a balcony overlooking the Valiant capital. Liara joined him carrying 2 cups of Earth coffee. It had become popular on the Valiant homeworld. Do you miss Earth? Liara asked. Sometimes, Jake admitted. But I'm doing good work here. Building bridges. Helping people. That matters. You could have stayed a soldier, Liara said. Fought battles. Won glory. Glory is overrated, Jake replied with a smile. I'd rather build something that lasts. He looked at her. I'd rather be here. With you. Liara smiled. It was that same beautiful smile he'd first seen on the ship years ago. The life debt is satisfied, you know. You are free to leave whenever you wish. I know, Jake said. But some bonds matter more than debt. Some connections are worth keeping. Yes, Liara agreed softly. Some are. They stood together watching the sunset. 2 souls from different worlds who had found each other in the darkness. Who had chosen compassion over convenience? Who had built something beautiful from a single act of kindness? In the distance, human and Valiant ships patrolled together, a symbol of an alliance that had saved millions of lives, an alliance that started because one human soldier couldn't ignore suffering, because one princess refused to let that soldier stand alone. The galaxy was vast and often cruel, but it also held moments of grace, moments when the right choice was made, when courage was shown, when bonds were formed that transcended species and culture. Jake had entered a slave market intending only to gather information. He had left with a princess, a mission, and a future he never expected. He had learned that sometimes the smallest acts ripple outward in ways impossible to predict. He had learned that doing the right thing even when it's hard is always worth it. And he had learned that true strength isn't measured in weapons or victories. It's measured in compassion, courage, and the willingness to stand beside those who need you. As the stars began to appear in the purple sky, Jake felt at peace. He had found his purpose, not as a soldier, but as a bridge between worlds, not through violence, but through understanding. And it all began because a princess refused to leave his side after he released her from chains.